Blog Talk Radio.
चोरी किया रे दिल ये दिल लिया रे चोरी चोरी किया रे दिल ये दिल लिया रे जादू से जादू किया रे जागे सोई रहूं खोई खोई रहूं उसकी यादों में उसके ख्वाबों में झूमे सितारे.
Oh, I love it. I love that, Todd. Thank you. This is Mandy Goodhandy, and welcome. If you're either listening live or listening to our archives, I hope you enjoy our show tonight, because we have these wonderful young men from an event that's held at our club, 3 or 4 times a year, and it's called Rangeela, okay, and it's an amazing dance party with just some of the most interesting, fun people I know that I have been around since our club opened. It's been just delightful. And Todd will tell you more about the event. And, of course, we have the boys. They're going to be online in a couple of minutes, and they're going to tell you some of the background and what the event's about and basically fill you in, so to speak. Todd, how are you doing? This is my business partner, friend, Todd Klink.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm doing fine.
Good.
The boys are, I'm going to let the boys talk about themselves, because there's 4 of them, and I know they have lots to say, and the party is a South Asian themed party, and it's a queer party, and it's just a great group of people. It's always been done for charity from the get-go, so that's an interesting thing. As far as promoters approaching us with events, often they're businesses, and these boys from the beginning chose to do this as a fundraising collective for a whole variety of things. So I think we'd like to ask them, what provoked them to pull this party together, and a little bit about their lives and where they came from and what it's like being South Asian.
And we'll also ask them about the event. I'm sorry to interrupt, Todd. We'll ask them about who they're raising money for, and then the next event, because it's the Malvern Family Resource Center, and we want them to tell you a little bit about that, so that, as usual, Todd and I we do this show partly to vent, but it's also to educate people out there, anybody who decides to listen in this. We try and have a wide variety of things going on in the show to do with the queer community, queer-friendly community, and our allies, so that we all know what's going on. And it's all about communicating. It's all it comes at that, doesn't it, Todd? Because that's, education is communication. I was going to mention a couple of things that are going on in the news right now. Even if you're listening to archives, and you'll probably be listening and going, we know about that. But this is just on the news today. More information about Kathleen Wynne. For all those out there, Kathleen Wynne is the very first female premier of Ontario. And congratulations to you, my dear. And not only that, she is queer. And I think that's just brilliant. And the deputy premier, her deputy, is also a female. So there you go. I mean, we'll see, won't we? Okay, the second thing is talking about females. The Pope resigned today, which is the first Pope in 600 years that ever resigned the post. And basically, he's claimed he's just getting older, and he's not able to fulfill, what he has to do at the Vatican, whatever it is they do. Prance around in robes and whatever it is they do, blessing people, and we won't get into any more of that, will we? Okay, but we all know the Pope was not a big queer supporter. Let's just put it that way. And that's my only problem. I don't have a problem with the Catholic religion. I don't have a problem with the Catholic Church. I do have a problem with people who are judging other people. I always make that clear out there. I'm not anti-religion. Okay, so the other thing is, he was not a big supporter of women being ordained in the Catholic Church. I didn't like that either.
He was a big supporter of allowing priests who had molested children to keep their jobs.
Oh, yes, of course. That's
there's a lot of background of him just sort of moving, being implicit in allowing them to move from city to city. So.
Well, of course, because for years and years and years, none of that ever happened. Because, God knows, a priest would never do something like that. But
oh my God, no, never.
Anyway, that was sarcasm for anybody out there that can't tell. But we're going to be having a nun on our show one time, right, Todd? I talked to this sweet, sweet, sweet lady, and she is part of Spectra, the talent contest that's at our club once a month, second Sunday every month. And she is part of the operation that goes on. What does she actually do at the event?
She's a stage manager, and she's fascinating because it's a talent contest open to everybody, but it is essentially a queer talent contest, and she is I call her the modern nun because she just I want to know what makes her tick, because she volunteers for all what I heard through somebody else's hearsay. So she volunteers for lots of different organizations, lots of different things. So she gets out there, and she's great.
Oh, she's a sweetheart. I've had conversations with her, and she's just a doll. Not unlike these young men we're going to be talking about for Rangeela. I remember my first Rangeela experience, Todd, when I was working the bar. And there's few events that come into our club that I actually turn around and go, I love these people. I love this event. And there's a lot of that. Crush, I love them. There's a few other events that come in. It's because of the crowd. The way the crowd is, that's how I ended up loving people, because the feel of it. And what a beautiful bunch of fun people, and I got to serve them drinks and everything, and they were not pretentious, and they were just loving. And Todd, I think it's probably, when it comes to all of the dance, besides Crush, I have never seen the dance floor so packed.
Yeah.
They're all out there dancing. And you know what? That's what going out to a nightclub is about. It's dropping the fucking pretentious. Stop being pretentious. You're never going to get fucked if you're pretentious, so get over it. Okay, come into a bar and have a good time and know how to party. If you don't want to party and you're a snob, stay the fuck home, because nobody wants to see your miserable face. Okay, because if you're going to come to a party, enjoy yourself. And this is what I've noticed with this party, is a bunch of people just having a great time. And it's mixed, again, which you know how I love that. I love mixed parties. And the women, they've got women, the queer women, they've got the queer guys, they've got the people who are allies, and it's wonderful. So I thought I would mention that. Oh, the other thing, I'll just mention, but one more thing about the news. I would like the weather people on the news to fuck off. Okay, I'm saying that generally. I'm going to tell you, I'm sick of it. Every time they go on, if there's a bit of snow that's going to fall, all of a sudden the world is falling apart. Okay, and then they're telling everybody to stay home, be careful, it's going to snow. Meanwhile, oh, wait, this is Canada. Okay, and it just shocks the hell out of me, and I'm going to tell you why. As a small business owner, they don't seem to realize, or maybe they do, or maybe they're just idiots. They affect small businesses everywhere when they start scaring people about weather.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of the weather, Todd. They go on about it. Or an update. Oh, my God. Okay, look. Oh, someone's building a snowman. Oh, my God. Maybe the snowman will come alive and eat everybody. I don't get what the big panic is. And, of course, today on the weather, because the snow is melting, all of a sudden they've got this picture of Moses holding up his staff, parting the fucking waters. And it's like, oh, my, now they're going to scare people because it could be freezing rain next. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, be careful because,
Moses? Or did they actually have Moses on the news?
Well, no, I think it was probably a remake. I think they just did a snapshot from the movie with Charlton Heston.
Oh, no, I didn't mean with Moses on the news. I meant, are you joking about the imagery, or did they actually use that imagery?
No, the imagery I saw, okay, I might have missed some of the story, so I don't want to, say I saw the whole thing. But the imagery I actually came out into my living room to watch, because I just wander around when the news is on, because most of the time it's just a bunch of fluff and stupidity. But anyway, I'm looking at the water, and they had a shot of the water running along the street into we call it a stank in Scotland. What's it called here? A drain in the road. And it's like, and I'm looking at this going, okay, what does this mean? Okay, they had everything but people in canoes, like floating across the road. All I'm saying is they got to stop. They make every story into this big, huge drama.
And it does fuck with our business. It's ridiculous. It's just the amount of times when there's been like full-on freezing rain, snow warnings, when it's actually been dry outside.
Yes.
And people are like staying at home because they're scared. Oh, maybe later tonight the snow's gonna.
Then we have to be careful, and I get it, because we should be safe and we should be careful, and I agree with that. You should perhaps warn people, but to go on a 24-hour watch and go, okay, stay tuned to this channel, because Santa's coming. It's like it drives me crazy, and it's like, and I'm looking at this going, do you even realize how many businesses you're hurting? And it's not just the nightclub businesses; it's everything.
Yeah.
And the streets are like there's nobody around, and all the businesses are sitting there, and they've got no customers, and then they wonder why people are being unemployed. So I'm just sending that out there into the universe so people will hear it. And it's like, you know what? Enough already.
Yes. All right, I'm gonna start adding the boys to the show one by one.
Yes, let's do that, because I really want to hear. I want to hear all about their event. I want to hear about these guys too. I don't really get to talk to them much, and the times I've been at the club, of course, the music's too loud. You don't really get to know people there. So yes, thank you.
All right, we have Wasim so far. Hello, Wasim, are you there? Hello.
Did you lose them?
I'm not sure. Everyone's, it says they're
I can
live.
hear you guys just fine.
Oh,
okay, cool.
A voice from somewhere.
Hi, Mandy. Hi, Todd. How's it going?
Hello. Thank you so much for being on.
No, thank you so much for having us. To be honest, Shahzad and I are actually sitting in the same living room, and we've just been hearing the rant for the past 10 minutes, and it's a really entertaining one. So your listeners are always in for a treat.
Oh, you know what? Somebody's got to say it. You know how it is. It's like somebody's just got to say it. And I'm sure you have your rants, and we want to hear about how this all started. Let us know how Rangeela started.
So, would it be possible to get Shahzad and Imran in on the conversation too? Because I think that
can you get them in, Todd?
Yeah, everyone's in. Everyone's say hello. Let's make sure it's working.
Hey guys.
Hi. It's like a cast of thousands. This is so exciting.
Yeah. Hey Todd, hey Mandy.
Hi.
Hey Todd, hi Mandy.
So who's going to specialize in telling us about Rangeela? And
I'm just going to start really quickly first, and then I'll let sort of Shaz and Imran speak. I think the roots of the event itself, interestingly enough, there's so much sort of that's said about, the fact that we're a complete not-for-profit, and all our proceeds always go to charity for every event. And I think a lot of that was decided in our first event, which wasn't even a Rangeela event back then. It all took place for a community event back in, I believe, 2010, when Pakistan had the floods and 20 million people were displaced. And I know that Shahzad and I were working in the same workplace, and we thought to ourselves, well, let's just do a fundraiser, because someone needs to care a little bit more about what's happening to 20 million people at once, right? Mm-hmm. So the roots of the event essentially took place there, and I think that format has carried on over the past 2 years, and it has grown to become one of the most successful events over time. I think that's essentially where the event got rolling. Now, I know that Shaz and Imran sort of brought a very unique flair to it when they came up with the name Rangeela. Shaz, you should probably tell them about the roots of the name.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just to comment on the fact that one of the reasons was also a response from the community, because within the last few years, queer South Asian and queer Bollywood parties have been happening, but they haven't been consistent. They start off, and due to fatigue and whatnot, that the party just kind of fades out. And I think for us, we never had something that was very consistent for quite some time. Where we have in New York, there's Sholay, which is their queer South Asian party, who's going on for about 10 years. And I believe Club Kali in the UK has been going on for I think it's about 16 years, for quite some time. And in Toronto, there's never been something that's been as consistent for the queer community. So for something like that, we wanted something that was consistent, that people could be proud of, and which is why, just starting off in the for the last few years, is we have it 4 times a year, just to so we can keep it fresh, and so we can keep it exciting, kind of give that, so people kind of crave it a little bit. So then every party that happens, people are, oh wow, there's so much here, there's so much to be proud of, because everybody's kind of coming together all at once. Just the interesting story about the name was when me and Imran first moved here to Calgary, from Calgary, and we always talked about that. We were talking about, because there was like, there were queer parties happening, but like once again, like that consistency wasn't there, and but I think it wouldn't be really cool if there were like a name or some kind of bar or something that we would have like a good high quality party. People would come in and be like, hey, that's it's a place where I feel like I can fit in. It's good quality music and company and everything like that. And we thought, well, why not the name Rangeela? Rangeela meaning like it's two things. It means full of color, I believe, in Hindi, and also it's the name of a very famous movie in Bollywood, which a lot of gay brown boys kind of like look up to with the iconic female character in that. So those are the two, like that might explain the origins of it.
Thank you for answering that, because I was going to actually ask that, what Rangeela meant, and you explained that very, very well. Thank you. And you were saying there's a woman in those movies she's like a gay icon, is she?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, she's scandalous, and she wears a bikini, and she shows everything pretty much. So this is a perfect launch point for South Asian queers to come together and listen to Bollywood, Bhangra, hip-hop, R&B, everything, And DJ Deep is an amazing DJ that we got, and he's blasting the best music, and we've just been hearing great stuff about it, and people just are excited for the next one, so...
Well, thank you for mentioning also DJ Deep, because I was going to bring him up in the show. Great, you guys. That's the other thing I was going to mention, was the fact the music that you guys play at these events is just so high energy and exciting.
I think that's a reflection of our culture, right? First of all, thank you so much for sort of, saying all the kind things you said about every event that we have there. And I mean, honestly, we love Goodhandy's as a venue as well. I don't think there are that many venues in Toronto who are as laid back and unpretentious and as connected to the diversity within the community as Club 120, now that it's called, is. And so it's always great to kind of come to a place which feels like home from the moment you step in. And I think that, the club you guys run really has that vibe from the get-go. But as far as the partying culture is concerned, I think that's just part of what South Asian culture is. Our events or festivities, our weddings are major excuses to dance, and our holidays are major excuses to dance. And so we just really like to get down and party. And the fact that there was that void, that there was a platform missing for queer South Asians to actually just step out and say, okay, this is our event, and we can come and dance however we like and with whoever we like. It just gave us that excuse to just unleash our inner dancers.
And it certainly shows. It does. You can feel the energy in the air when you're actually around the party. You can feel it all, and you can feel the love.
Well, somebody said it to me once. Somebody sort of said to me, because I was observing it, and of course I don't know any of the songs. I like them instinctively, but there was this period where everyone was singing along, and this guy came in. He goes, these are all the songs that we play at our weddings, and now we're here and we're queer and we're in Canada and we're singing them together in a queer environment. And it was the amount of people who knew the words. It was like everybody in the room, including our security, knew the word.
Fill us in a little bit about that, though, gentlemen, if you don't mind. The back of your culture. How is your culture generally regarding queers?
It's an interesting one. Chad, do you want to tackle this one? Considering you actually work with a support group for queer South Asians.
I mean, generally speaking, it's something. Well, not even just sexuality, but just within the culture, just talking about sex in general is something that's a kind of a topic that's taboo and kind of hard to gauge. So talking about sexuality kind of is kind of another level kind of that you kind of have to get to, sort of thing. So generally speaking, sex and sexuality is something that's not really talked about, but things are done, but it's just not really talked about. The whole idea of just for instance, in Pakistan, to give an example, like guys do have sex with. It's not uncommon for guys to have sex with other guys before they get married. Just because, okay, well, it's just something that you do, for pleasure or not. But then you get married to a woman anyway. But there's not really that concept of naming stuff as queer a lot of the time. It just kind of really depends on where you come from. But I mean, generally speaking, in the sense of how we define it, it's not something that's talked about, I guess.
Is it so? What you mentioned there, I just want to make sure I got this right. So sometimes it's regional, depending on the region of South Asia, is how tolerable or not tolerable?
I think more what it is the fact that, because sexuality is such a non-entity when it comes to conversations within the community, what happens is that when it comes to the issue of alternate sexualities, whether you identify as gay, bisexual, queer, trans, whatever, I think those issues are often swept under the rug because the assumption is that, quote-unquote, good moral people aren't having sex outside heterosexual marriage anyway. So what you will often experience is that you'll get just the way you get in fraternities or at camp or young boys will experiment with each other, and that's completely one of those things where as long as you're not having sex with the opposite gender and getting anyone pregnant, it's all kind of swept under the rug is perfectly fine. But the problematic nature of that is the fact that when someone comes out and says, no, I actually prefer having sex with someone from the same gender, that's a big taboo in the sense that how dare you, first of all, have a sexual preference, and two, you were just supposed to keep this as a hush-hush thing. Now you're trying to make a lifestyle out of it. So that's where the challenge comes in for queer South Asians.
Yeah, that could happen. It's interesting. But people need to be aware of it, and that this is why we have all these different variations on our show and different people on our show and different cultures and backgrounds, because people out there, a lot of people in the mainstream don't know this. And you're right, because a lot of people from your area don't talk about it.
Yes.
And
no,
I
absolutely.
see a lot of guilt. And as a sex worker who used to see different clientele, I found the people who I saw that came from, let's say, I'm going to call it South Asia in general.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to generalize, but whenever they came, there was a lot of guilt involved.
Me too, as well, as a sex worker. I had a fair amount of clients and phone calls from guys who were South Asian in background. And actually, Mandy and I talked about it once before about being trans, about how some guys had actually said to you, "Oh, well, yeah, I had sex with boys when I was younger." But
they don't recognize it. Any that I met did not recognize me as a trans woman. They only recognized me as a guy dressed up.
Right.
They couldn't, because they weren't used to it, I guess. I really don't know, but they didn't seem to get the concept. And, and I tried to explain it to them and educate them, because they would kind of look, well, you have breasts, and it's like, okay, well, yes, because I live this way. This is how I feel. And so it was kind of interesting to educate them as well, but there was an awful lot of them, and I'm going to give you a percentage here. There was an awful lot of them, and maybe 75% who wanted to be bottoms.
Yep. Wow.
They wanted to be bottoms, but they acted like they were being raped. And it was very odd to me, because I didn't understand it. And I actually asked one guy one time, and I said to him, why are you acting like I'm forcing this on you when you're the one that wanted this? And he said it was what he was used to.
Wow.
I know, that was kind of it. And I thought, well, okay, you mentioned to me that the boys do each other. They're not allowed to do women. So if they want release, they do each other. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no, that part's definitely, and I think that's probably just a commentary on the lesser developed parts of South Asia. So it's it's smaller towns and more rural areas, because I think within larger cities, I think there is a greater cognizance of what queer identity means now. But yes, I think that it's a fair statement to make that it is a common practice within small towns for it to happen.
But is it forced upon them? Where did they get this rape fantasy from?
You know what it is? I think, Mandy. I think we had. I feel Sadat might have read about this as well. Is that we had read about this entire dominance culture, or the hierarchical culture of, for example, truck drivers in India specifically, where it is fairly common practice for the main truck driver to top the apprentice, just as a form of sexual dominance, to kind of establish that superiority. I think that it all kind of just leads into that idea of what machismo means, what being powerful means, and sometimes sexual submissiveness is demanding that is kind of getting that kick of I am superior to you. So there is that element of it as well.
And and also too that like even when it comes to there's not really a word for gay in Hindi or even in Urdu. It's just like the words that describe. So it's more of a description of what the activity is, but there's not actual word for gay. And it's more what happens. Kind of like just to build on what Wasim was saying when it comes to the whole machismo part of it. If a guy's a top, it's the whole concept of him not being. Oh, he's not gay because he'd be, he's just like, fucking a hole essentially. But then if a guy's a bottom, then there's more of like that stigma surrounding that person, taking it.
You know what? And I think one of the things I was trying to shy away from saying because I don't like sort of making statements based on personal perceptions. Yeah. But I'm going to sort of say this. From my 2 years of working within the sector, the not-for-profit sector, working with South Asian queers specifically, one of the things I've noticed that often happens within immigrant South Asian couples is that there is that element of gender dynamics that comes in, and I think that's just a reflection of an early it's early within its formative stages of queer culture within South Asia, because what often happens is that it's very common for queers to model themselves after their heterosexual counterparts initially before they start developing their own subculture as South Asian queers as well. So I think that what often happens is when you find immigrant South Asians coming to Canada is that aping of the heterosexual norm of where the top will play the dominant husband. Often you'll see bottoms in relationships really not only be submissive but almost take on that gender role of I will cook and clean and whatnot. Now that's obviously a generalization. I don't think it happens across the board, but it's something we've seen a lot of. And I think that's what makes, events like Rangeela really exciting, because it is that platform of giving birth to a very unique South Asian queer subculture, which needs to develop into its own body and not just be a reflection of our heterosexual counterparts as well. I think that's the exciting part about Rangeela. I think Shazad and I and Imran and I often talk about the fact that we are the Stonewall generation of queer South Asians. I think that when it came to white Anglo-Saxon North Americans, it happened a couple of decades ago. We were just a little bit behind because it took a while for us to form our voices. So now, just a few years ago, India struck down the law that made sodomy illegal. That was struck down. That was a great moment for us. I know that India is now beginning to have gay pride parades. So it's the beginnings of queer subculture for South Asians. So I think that what we're talking about right now about men wanting to be dominated and having the rape fantasies and whatnot, I think it's the very beginnings of what queer subculture means. It comes from very carnal, very animal-like, dominant, submissive roles where it says, I have a need, you are a whole, you will fulfill it because you are inferior or submissive to me economically or socially. But as, people come out and say, no, this is not just about sex, this is about love, this is about life, it's about identity, people now start forming, an entire subculture about what it means to be queer South Asian.
You guys are brilliant. It's like, that was just so beautiful, and I can't even tell you, and I appreciate it so much. The fact that you're educating people out there, and you just did, and including Todd and I. I mean, I was looking forward to the show because I knew there was going to be I would learn something, and I do want to. Every time I want to learn something else. This is why our club, like you mentioned earlier, and thank you for that. We will not have it any other way. We need diversity. We love diversity. And the fact that you mentioned that you're like the Stonewall, what you're doing is like, and it is, it's the truth. You're bringing something to the surface and you're being proud of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also and you kind of even reflect even like just to give credit to even some of the queer South Asians who have in the late 80s, early 90s, like there have been queer South Asian groups that have popped up, and and it's because of them that certain organizations came together, such as ASAP, and which is the Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention, things like that. There was a group that was called Kush, which means happiness in Hindi, and it was a queer South Asian group that started off in, I believe, in 1989, around there. But once again, what we have is the group would be around and active, and they would, they start up organizations. They would have like kind of queer political festivals. One called Desh Pradesh, was a kind of a queer arts festival that was kind of in the queer South Asian community that happened for a number of years. But once again, what would happen is they would start up, there would be something, and then they die out, and then start up, and then die out, and start up, and then so once again, there's been a number of events that's been happening like that. And here we've got the ball again, and this is why there's been such a need, why our dance floor fills up, and why everybody comes together so much, is because there is that need there, and we just want to do it strategically in a way in which people will constantly be excited about it as the years go on, and really feel proud of something, that there's a place to come together within the gay community.
A lot of people don't see the bar. A lot of people don't see the bars as a very important portal into all of this, about being yourselves and becoming free and feeling great about who you and what you are, and seeing others doing the same. It's a celebration. So, and you guys have brought this up a few times, and the celebration is an extremely important part of moving on and moving further as queers. And a lot of people look at it as, we have to get together at a community center and we have to all just kind of sit around and talk about our problems. That is an important part, of course. But we've got to remember the social part of it is extremely, extremely important. And I'm a little afraid of that only because of the Internet, where you're not going to get that physical, where people are actually going together in one space and watching each other, being happy and showing love and enjoying, whether it's their culture or whether it's their gender or their sexuality or whatever the reason. But it's so important when that's happening. And you guys do that at your parties.
Absolutely. No, I think what you touched on something very important, is the fact that I definitely think that community centers and activist organizations have a space, and they serve a very important purpose. But what is equally important is the fact that there's an organic grassroots emergence of the community, and I think that happens within places where people are allowed to be themselves, which is like bars like yours, at events like Rangeela, where it's not about coming there with a political purpose. It's about coming there willfully just to be yourself, and then saying that this space is mine and I will fight to keep it alive. I think that is the more grassroots and the more intimate way of how a community and a movement emerges. I mean, you have to keep in mind that when it comes to the gay rights movement in Canada, it came about when bathhouses were raided. It wasn't it wasn't exactly just a political agenda where people sat in the community center and they said, let's fight for the legalization of homosexuality or the legalization of bathhouses. No, these were people who came to common spaces where they celebrated their sexuality, and when those spaces were attacked, it's that moment when people realized that no, this is our space, this is where we feel comfortable, and we will fight to keep these spaces alive. So I think that, no, you're right. You're definitely right. I completely agree with you in the sense that bars, bathhouses, every space which allows you to be yourself is a very subtle and unspoken celebration, and a very subtle and unspoken platform for a community to emerge and to come as one.
I'm sorry. I was going to say there's 4 of you on the line right now, right? I've only heard like 2 or maybe 3 of you. Who's being quiet? Okay, and also, is someone doing their dishes? I hear this claim. Is that you, Todd?
I wasn't just now or a while ago.
I'm definitely not doing my dishes right now.
A little while ago, you sounded like you were working in a soup kitchen. What the hell's going on over there?
Oh, yeah, I was multitasking. I do apologize.
Oh, see what he's like? He bakes a cake during the show and everything else. It's incredible. But
yes, let's say hi to some. Imran, tell us something about yourself. Were you born in Canada?
Yeah, I was born in Calgary, and I moved to Toronto about 4 years ago. And I don't ever want to move back. That's for sure. And I'm having a great time here, and it's It's been a lot of fun. I've met a big gay South Asian group of people, like great group of people, and they've really, it's just a really great community, and it's really supportive. And as like Wasim and Shazad was telling you earlier, that it's just a very supportive community, and just to be a part of that and have this big celebration is such a big deal, you know, and I'm glad that I can be part of it. So it's, yeah. So
welcome on to the show as well. The next event that's coming up for Rangeela, just to make this clear in case people out there didn't hear it, it's Friday night, 15th of February. Mm-hmm. That's the next one. And did you want to talk about what you have planned for that? Is there anything? Is there any surprises? Is there any sorts of shocking things you got coming up that we should know?
Well, I think more surprising, less shocking. I think the fact that we made it to 2 years is the shocking part. But beyond that, it is a very unique event. It's the first time we're trying a couple of things, which again, you know, are very in tune with what we value as South Asians. I think that, you know, one thing we noticed when working within South Asian support groups for 2 years at ASAP was the fact that, you know, when it comes to when it comes to South Asians who identify as queer, we really we value the love part, the relationships part, the family part, the community part a lot more than just the sex of it. And so I think that one of the things we wanted to do, I'm personally not a big believer in Valentine's Day. However, you know, we just thought that it's a topical thing to do. We're going to be having a secret crush board at the event where if you see anyone, everyone's going to have a number sticker on them. If you see a certain guy, you want to leave a certain message for him. You're too shy to walk up, which I know. So it works perfectly for me. You can just, you know, walk up to the board and leave them a note being like, number 86, you're really cute. If you ever want to talk, I'm waiting upstairs and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we're doing. There's a couple of other things as well. We've got a brand new performer who's going to be debuting on stage. Her name's Brianna Queen. So it's an exciting event for us. We're very, very excited.
And I also noticed you're doing something that I just love, and Todd knows this. He'll be my witness. Slow dances. You're going to do a slow dance every hour. Yeah. I'm so excited about that.
And I mean, like, once again, just kind of like Wasim was talking about the whole love thing and everything. And I mean, Bollywood films, like one of the main songs that everybody kind of like gravitates to is like that big kind of a slow love song that you have. Because, you know, every Bollywood movie is essentially based around a love story. And there's that big, the one big song, which, you know, throughout the 90s especially, where people would sit and listen to and, you know, fantasize and, you know, create big dreams in their head, right, Wasim?
Yes. Thank you for alluding to me.
Yes. Some of those guys I was fucking up the ass, they were dreaming all right. It's like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love that slow song. I always say that to Todd. Why don't people do slow songs anymore in a nightclub? And, you know, I guess maybe in some cases the bar might feel it's bringing down the energy, but I don't think it does. I think it helps the energy. It brings, like, exactly with the way you express it, that bit of love into it. And, you know, it's like you see the togetherness. And I think it's so hot. I personally, because I'm a voyeur, and I think it's so hot seeing two boys slow dancing and two girls slow dancing. It's just like, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. You know what it is, Mandy? Also, something I personally believe is the fact that I think in today's age we've become very comfortable with sex, but somehow, oddly enough, we've become very scared of intimacy. And they're two very different things. And I think that what happens when you tell people that, listen, at the top of every hour, we will play a slow song, and it is a slow dance number, it forces people to be in that context where you're like, okay, everyone's doing it, let's just get a little bit closer and just feel someone without grinding up on them. I think that that is the exciting part, is the fact that we rediscover the magic of just holding someone and just going with the, you know, with again, like Shazad said, I think just, you know, living out the fantasies the way they do it in the movies. And that's what we're all about at Rangeela, right? Yeah.
No, the fantasies are great. You got to have that fantasy. So you're telling me I'm not allowed to grind to get up to somebody. Is that what you're saying? No grinding.
You grind all night long for the slow dancers. Let's make it a little bit more intimate.
Like some dog in heat grinding up against somebody's leg. I don't know. Todd, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to keep me behind that bar. I don't know. You just have to be careful.
That really I'm hoping will happen, Mandy and Todd, is that I'd love to actually get you guys from out of behind the bar for hopefully this Friday and get you guys out for one of the slow dances. And this is just this is a very shameless opportunity for us to just grope Todd, because I think it's a thought that crosses all of our minds at some point.
Todd lends himself to the community all the time.
I'm very gropable. I allow groping.
Yes, he does. He's very open to that, and I'm the one. And I go around and grope people. So there's a great exchange. You guys can all grope my business partner as long as I'm allowed to go around and grope everybody else at the party.
Done. This is
okay, and none of you are safe. That includes the men and the women. Okay, so see what you're starting now. You're turning this into, my goodness.
This may be also just a random thought, but because Bollywood movies, Mandy, have you ever, I guess you probably haven't seen very many. I've just started seeing one of the ladies who dances often dances to Bollywood songs. She's a Bollywood freak. She's obsessed with Bollywood, and she always plays them on YouTube. And I used to not even look at the screen because I was used to I'm playing music. Now I'm cleaning a booth. I'm letting in a customer. And then I started watching the videos. Oh my God, they are the gayest things I've ever seen in my life. Oh yeah. The guys on those videos are wearing more makeup than I am. Oh no, and the group numbers, like the musicals. Like I don't like musicals. But Mandy, you like musicals. These are like group numbers with 1,000 people in them. Oh, I know. They bring in the whole population. It's like, come on, I got to be doing a video over here. And the production, like it's all so slick and like. No, I've seen. Believe me, I have watched numbers. Oh yes, I have, and it's the costuming and the colorfulness and the fact that they're all so fucking happy. You know. It's like all smiling. Oh yes, my father-in-law's going to kill me, and oh. And is it cultural? Are Bollywood movies in the mainstream in India? Are they considered controversial? There's a lot of skin showing. There's a lot of very sexy. I'm just asking boys. Do you have some input on that?
I think cinema overall around the world is known to push the envelope every once in a while, right? And I think off late that's definitely happened more and more. It's because I think we're all becoming one big, global village where we borrow so much from global cinema that our women look at women in Hollywood and they go, well, why not us? So everyone's in on this big, sort of very progressive culture of cinema. In fact, speaking of progressive culture, India. Just, for the first time over the past 5 years or so, has had a couple of gay-themed movies actually be box office successes. I think that has been a huge thing. I think Dostana was a big one. I know that was essentially just a story about two leading men, two A-list actors, pretending to be gay in order to secure a flat. And I think the fact that the word gay was uttered in a mainstream Bollywood movie really got the ball rolling in a lot of ways. Most recently, I know this wasn't very A-listy, but I know that they had a full gay romance in a Bollywood movie recently, in a movie called Don't Know Why, Na Jaane Kyun, the title of which I don't know why that title is such, but I think it's really pushing the envelope in that direction too. So that's an exciting time for us as well.
Gavin, one more step. Yeah, it's great. That's great to hear. I heard about that movie. I haven't seen it as yet, least, but it's definitely something to watch eventually.
Yeah, and they have a Kama Sutra 3D movie coming out very soon as well. So.
Oh my! Yes. Well, thanks for the warning. When it comes right down to it, people, it's great that people are realizing and seeing, the amount of talent and excitement, and because a lot of people. They don't understand your style of music. This is what it comes down to. And people are so thick-headed, okay, generally. I'm speaking of myself, too. There's a lot of types of music out there that I go, oh, my God, what is that? It's like, but the thing is, once you get used to any type of music and get into it and listen to it and feel it, which is the important part of appreciating music, is feeling it, then you can really see the beauty in it and really have a good time with it. And have fun with it. And we need to bring all that together, all the different cultures coming together, teaching each other about culture, music, sexuality, anything, whatever it is, it's good.
Absolutely. And after a few drinks, everything sounds the same, right? So.
Oh yeah, I love everybody after that. Yeah, for sure.
So true.
Yeah, I'd be hugging the Pope after a few drinks.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like
learn how to screw the light bulb, do the shindig. It's all good.
Well, this is the thing. Let down your hair and whatever else.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Todd, do you have anything you want to talk to the guys about?
Yeah, there's an article that Shazad was in Extra, and I pulled it up in front of me on the computer. I just remember the first couple paragraphs that I read them, I got chills up my back because it was something I hadn't ever thought of, and it's just one of those true experiences, and it's very interesting. I'm going to throw it out there and see if the boys want to talk about this a little bit. It goes, like most discussions of race, conversations on color in the queer community often fall into a black versus white paradigm with the occasional no Asians, please thrown in for good measure. And then Shazad said, when you're queer and South Asian, you're invisible in both your communities. You don't hear guys saying things like, I'm not into brown boys. They just forget we exist at all. And it's true. I've never seen that. I'm an online cruising pervert myself. I've never seen anybody saying, oh, no brown boys. I just wasn't there. That's all I'm saying. I threw that out there. Anyone want to talk about it?
Yeah, this is a conversation. This whole thing started. Wasim and I actually were having a discussion where a Fab magazine, I believe, came out with a, they have this sex survey that comes out and stuff like that, where they ask just people all their different sexual fantasies and things that they're into and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was last year, 2 years ago, there was one particular question that said, what ethnicity are you into? And that was an interesting thing, because when that came back, we looked at it, and out of all the different ethnicities, how it was, we were rated the lowest, out of all the ones. And then that wasn't we had an interesting discussion about that. Then we said, well, why do you think that is? And then that's when we realized that you don't see us anywhere, where it was in the mainstream media, you just don't see that, even in the gay culture. The thing is, even the whole concept of being sexualized kind of thing, us in these kinds of roles and stuff, you just don't see it. Where of the person who's the convenience store owner, you're the one who drives the taxi, that kind of thing. And so then it's just people are just when they see you and look at you, I've had a number of guys come up to me and be like, hey, oh, so what's your background? And I'm like, well, I'm Indian. They're like, really? I never would have placed you. Then I'm like, well, what does an Indian person look like? You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, I wouldn't think. Oh, and then you get the big, oh, you're really good looking for an Indian person. I'm like, what reference is your person? You know what I mean? This is just it is a discussion that we had, and I think that's where that came from. Just want to add to that with it.
People are still using that expression. Tell me they're not.
No, they are. I think that's the unfortunate part, is the fact that the reason why often there's this misperception about South Asian guys not being attractive is that when you are horrifically when you're a horrific caricature of what the world's perception of South Asian men are, like Shaz said, the convenience store owners, the IT guy, the overweight uncle, driving a cab or something. I think that when you fit that mold, then you're South Asian. When you're supremely attractive, you look Hispanic or you look Arab. You look white, you look black, you look everything, but you're not South Asian.
You're not South Asian. I never would have placed you there. That kind of thing. And it's really interesting because, and then people genuinely, the funny part is when you hear people say stuff like, oh, I would never place you Indian or Pakistani, or oh, you're good looking for an Indian person, it's honestly seen as something that it's a compliment. And there's genuinely people giving you a compliment.
Yeah, she must feel blessed. Yeah.
It's a fact that and it's terrible because I think this is just one of the worst byproducts of colonialism, in the sense that we're left with this complex where I think so many of us are so desperate to just break out of the misfortune of being the shunned South Asian, that the moment someone tells us you don't look South Asian, all of a sudden it's like, I broke free from the mold of ugly South Asians. I must be the chosen hot one.
Yeah, exactly.
So that part, yes, it is really unfortunate. But again, I think I'm sorry about harping on about Rangeela, but I think it really just brings us back to the fact that when you have a platform like this, when this big diaspora of Canadians from all across the board come to what is obviously the largest queer South Asian event in Canada ever, they come into it and they go, wow, he's hot, and you go, yeah, and you know what, they're all South Asian. So now someone has left the event with a slightly more evolved perspective of what it means to find a South Asian attractive, and it's not just some sort of anomaly that you found, your local 7-Eleven guy attractive. It's the fact that you saw someone who's South Asian and he happened to be attractive, which is perfectly possible.
And so you think that maybe people out there think your party is a bunch of cab drivers and store owners?
Yeah, I would not be surprised if someone told me that. I genuinely would not.
I mean, probably some of them are, but that's not the point. I mean, it's like I get very. This is part of the reason why I just love it so much that all of our communities are going to come together and they're going to start coming together. Let's hope they do, because we're never going to survive unless we do. And it can't be segregation all the time within our own community. It has to be, okay, let's start showing people there's such a variety out there. It's got nothing to do with, oh, he's good looking, he can't be from India. I mean, that's just stupid.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just to in almost like a learning piece too, right? Because India isn't just one type of person. I mean, India, like depending on what region you're from, it's just like, and then if you're in the northern part, you were influenced by so many other cultures just over the centuries of different groups kind of taking over, conquering and stuff like that. Then you have the southern part of India, which is more ancient, and the people look very, very different. It's just there's so many different kinds of cultures. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, like that whole. It's just there's people who just look like different things simply because of the history of the country. And I mean, in a way, you're just like, maybe learn about it.
What planet are these people from? It amazes me the Earthlings are still being so stupid. And it just kind of shocks the hell out of me because, there's ugly-ass Canadians, there's ugly-ass Americans, and some people's opinion, if whatever they feel in their head is ugly, I mean, who's to even judge what's ugly? Even that statement, for people to come up with something like that, or it amazes me. I see beauty in so many people, and it's got nothing to do with physical.
And it's great you guys are out there representing, because everyone's scared to say this type of thing, especially a white person. I can say this, behind your people are blatantly racist towards South Asians, and when you have a bunch of white people in the room and nobody else is there, I hear shit all the time. It's seen as acceptable. Like it's more than other groups. I'm just being really blunt. It's shocking to me how common people will say shit that they would never say about a black person. They would never say about lots of other cultures. They say all kinds of shit about brown people, and I'm always just like, I can't believe you just said that. Like, are you seriously saying that to me, like openly with no sense of irony or awareness? And then they're like, well, what do you mean, man? I'm like, oh, okay.
But you got to remember, Todd, there's ignorance everywhere, and it's not just South Asians that get it. It's everybody. There's still people who talk about black people.
I know that, but this is the point that I'm being blunt about, that people don't like to admit it. I'm saying I hear more rudeness about South Asians in a context where the people who say it think it's acceptable than anything else. It's one thing for a bunch of liberated people of all different minorities to be together and make jokes about each other in a safe environment. That's different. This is like people who I don't even know saying things and they think it's acceptable, and I'm like, I can't believe you think that's acceptable.
You know what it is, Todd? I think you said something really, really good there, and I think I'm not going to mention the brand name, but very recently a brand of chips came out with an ad campaign featuring Ashton Kutcher in brown face, mimicking the South Asian accent to sell chips, which I think if you just take a step back, it makes absolutely no sense as to why you would come up with that. But someone made a very valid point when there was an uproar towards that ad, which was eventually pulled off, was the fact that it's as South Asians in North America, we are the new dickless, faceless minority where the dickless, faceless, voiceless minority where no one's going to see us sexually. We're not going to say anything because if you say something about black people in blackface, you've got an uproar coming for you. But for some odd reason, we're considered too meek to have a voice of our own, and therefore people think they can get away with it. I think, again, that's just in time. I think, we're slowly waking up to the fact that everyone has a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant who just happens to be South Asian. We've gone to school with South Asian kids now. We're slowly integrating into society. I think over time it's going to become very easy for people to say, hold on a second, this was a really stupid thing for you to say, and that was really ignorant. So it's just, I think, like Mandy said really well, I think there's ignorance all across the board, and I think that it's just over time people will wake up to the really, really harmful nature of some of the things they say, and that's why we try not to judge them, try not to hate them for it, because I'm pretty sure at some point we were there too. We've learned, we've grown, and I'm sure everyone will eventually as well.
And I think this kind of goes back to what I was talking about when you read the one part of the article, in which you because you feel invisible and because you don't see us around, people just think, well, like, I don't know, think it's okay to say stuff like that just because there isn't that representation there. And that's why you feel so invisible, because you really don't feel like there's a lot of you there, which is why, you have spaces like Rangeela and stuff like that to come together to feel that sense of community and community building, and which is why in our own way, where we have the charity thing attached to it, is so people can feel proud of the fact that their money is also not is going towards charity, but it's also community building at the same time, to get that sense of that pride. And the other guys who are like in similar situations as you, and to feel kind of proud of who you are and secure in your identity and stuff like that. So.
Thank you for that. And the other thing about to bring the club back up again is the fact that everybody just assumes because somebody owns a nightclub we're making millions of dollars, because they'll see a busy night here and there. They don't seem to realize the overhead that's involved. And it's events like yours, community-based events, that are helping us survive. And it's always your style of events that do that. If you look right across the board, all the events that ever come to our club on an ongoing basis, it's all groups, community groups, people who are involved in our community, helping to keep a community-based nightclub afloat.
It's a symbiotic relationship, Mandy, to be very honest. Shahzad tells me stories because, he recently traveled down to New York for Sholay, which is, the American equivalent of us at this point. I feel really proud being able to say that because they're an institution in their own right. They've been around for more than 10 years now. And I know that Shahzad mentioned that they often have challenges. They don't know when they're having one event where the next event is going to be held, because New York City is a cutthroat place to find a venue for promoters. And so for us to be able to say that this was a great event, come back 3 months from now, we're going to be here again, because we have that support from you and the love from you. I think that it is a symbiotic relationship in the fact that it's a testament to the silver lining around our community, that no matter what goes on, no matter what ignorance goes on, there are people like you and people like our community who can come together to provide really great platforms for everyone to have a good time.
Oh, beautifully said. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that, don't we, Todd?
Yes, absolutely.
It's nice to hear that from people, and you're not the only group that's come forward and said that. And the thing is, we try and fight as much as we possibly can for as much, trying to bring the community together, not just the South Asians, not just the Asians, it's everybody, and try and go, hey, let's all just get along, let's enjoy ourselves, let's have some fun here. But remember, we still have a long way to go. We still do.
No, absolutely.
And it's I can't wait for the day where the minority on this planet are the ignorant and the stupid. Okay, not necessarily the stupid because they can't help it, but the ignorant. Okay, the ignorant has to become minority. And when I say minority, let's just leave 10 of them and we'll move them up to the North Pole.
I wouldn't inflict that on the North Pole, because I'm sure there's good people up at the North Pole too.
I'm sorry, Santa and your elves. I didn't really mean that. But anyway, we're at the end of the show, and we want to thank you guys so much for coming on. The show has been so exciting. And again, Rangeela, everybody, February the 15th, please come by. It's an event that welcomes everybody.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, boys, very much. It was very
Thank you so
inspiring.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
For sure.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
That was good.